Hello and welcome to part 5 of building model RC aircraft out of foam using the sectioned foam fuselage technique and hot wire cut foam wings. In the last episode we showed how to actually draw the formers over the top of the plan that we had imported. This time we're going to take those formers that we have drawn and move them around until we can place them on that drawing and size them correctly. Okay, back to CAD. Okay everyone, we're back in the CAD workspace. Last episode we drew the formers, and I explained why we added some things here to make life a little easier down the road. Now I offset some of these formers to the right, some of them to the left. It really doesn't matter how you draw them. What we're going to do though, just in the interest of uniformity, is we're going to take each of these down here and we'll drop them on a line. One thing working with any 3D CAD program is that you have to be careful, because sometimes if you're not sure where you drop an object, you might not drop it on this ground plane. It might be up in the air. We can turn this thing sideways and you can select stuff here and move it, and when you do, you can end up way up in the sky. So now we've got stuff that's not on the ground plane. So just be careful when you're manipulating things in a 3D CAD program, where you put them and how you remain on your ground plane. Okay, so as I said, we're going to take these, we're going to move them. I'm going to move them down to a known good line. We're going to use this one down here that we used, as a matter of fact, to bring down our 30 millimeter distance. So now I'll take the copy, or not a copy. What I'm going to do is move the whole thing. Select it, select M for move, and we'll put, for a reference, we'll just use the bottom of all of these. And we'll move it down here and just drop it on that line. We know that that's on the ground plane line. Now we'll take this next one and you can select it by triple clicking. 1, 2, 3. It's all selected, just like we dragged a box around that one to select it. So 1, 2, 3 clicks and you got it. Hit move and we're going to pull this one over here. Okay. Now, as I said, for uniformity reasons, what we're going to do is turn them all the right way, just so that you're looking at it. The easy way to do that in SketchUp is, again, to select the entire thing, right click, come down, and it has a flip along the red direction selection down here in the drop down boxes. And what that does is just flips it along either the red, the green, or the blue axes. And we're going to choose red, of course, because that's the one we need to do this on. And there we go. Now it's facing the same way. Not a biggie, but as I said, it might make things easier to visualize. Again, 3 clicks selects that. Hit M for the move tool. We'll come down here, select this, and move it, up here. Now, as you can see on that one, it pulled 2 lines that were disconnected away. But the erase tool will get rid of that, and we don't have to worry about these lines. And you can see it crossed these others, and because they're not components yet, it drew on them. Well, we don't want that to happen, so just hit erase and that's gone. Now we'll come down here and do the rest of them fast. Okay, we're back now and just having these things over here and all in one direction might make things a little bit clearer. It's absolutely not necessary that this be done, but again, keeping your drawing neat and organized is a real help when you have to leave it and come back to it. So here are our formers. However, and we're doing another autosave now. Here are our formers, and what we're going to do now is have to size them for each individual segment. So here we go. We're going to start obviously with the last former in line, and that's way back here. It was former number 9, and it's this one. So we're going to take this, and now we're going to start using copies again. So I selected the whole thing. We're going to move. I hit M for move, and I'm going to come down here and select this very bottom. Now when I start moving that, I don't want to take this one. I want to take a copy. So before doing anything else, I hit Control C. That makes a copy. So what we're going to do now is come over and drop that copy on the F9 line here, the vertical slice that we have, that we started this sliced drawing with, and we're going to drop it on that line. What we're going to do is come all the way down here to the bottom, and since we're moving it, hanging on to one of the bottom handles, we'll drop it right there. I'm going to zoom out a bit. As you can see, it's short. It doesn't go all the way up to the top here. It's fairly accurate for the old balsa one, because that had to fit between pieces of balsa. But we need it to go all the way out to the skin. And again, there's an easy solution for that. Over here on the left, there is a feature called Scale. You hit S for Scale, and that gives you these drag and drop handles. Now what we're going to do for this particular, at this moment, is we're going to scale across the plane or the face of the image. If you grab another handle, you can distort it. As you can see, it does not scale uniformly. However, if you drag one of these across the entire plane, it scales uniformly in size. All right, so we need this to go up. So let's go up here and take this one, again, scaling across the plane. And we'll bring it up here until that matches there. Then we'll come down here again. I must have moved it a little bit earlier, so now we're there. Select the selection tool again. We come out of scale. And now we see that we have sized this. Let me do this one more to get it right up to the top. We've sized this just how we need it to the outside of these balsa lines. And there we are. Now we've got that sized accurately in the vertical direction. We've not sized it accurately this way yet, but that will come later. Okay, now what we're going to do is I'm going to do one more, and then I'll speed things up so you don't have to watch it all. But show you how to choose the next one. The next over here is F8 on the model. It's going to end up not being F8 when we end up with our numbers, but it's F8 right now. So we're going to select that. Again, the move tool, and again, we want to hit Control C to copy. And if you'll look over here, here's F8, and it's this is sized pretty well for F8 in the balsa model, but we don't need a former there. We need it back here. So F8 is the closest to this section, so we'll use it. As a matter of fact, we're going to use it for this one and for this one. So here we go. Again, come up here on our line, our section line, drop it on the outside. I'm going to back this off. You can see it's way too big. Hit S for scale. And we'll come down here and do that. It moved very slightly in the bottom, so we'll do them both. Now we'll come back in. Now we've got it scaled vertically. Now since F8 was the closest former that we have to our section here, we're going to use it again. So this time we'll select it, hit M for move, and Control C for a copy, and we're going to take it up here to the next segment. Again, drop it down here on the outside of that line, zoom out, hit S for scale, and we're going to move it up to right about, see there, come down here, that slightly moved it away, and now we've got that done. And you will see as you do these that quite often you'll have to use, we're going to use F7 here, we're going to use it twice also. So, and this, as you can see, we were lucky, F6 fell almost exactly on a segment. But it's very simple. You choose the copied former from the plan closest to the slice, and then you scale it. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit to shorten this video just a little bit for you, and put some more in here, and then we'll talk about it as we get up here closer to the canopy. Now we've come up to the area where the canopy, and F5 was our first former down here that involved a bit of the canopy in the profile. So now we've got to start considering that. So we'll go over here and grab the next one, put it in here, and see how it fits. Over here, this is F5. This is the one that had the canopy included. Again, move, Control C. And you'll see that some of these have to be sort of massaged later when we get them in here. So F5 should go here, but we're going to have to put it here because that's the closest segment that we have. Now, one more time, we're going to hit scale, and then we're going to look at what happened to the canopy when we did that. Let's see if we're down here far enough. Nope. Sometimes with SketchUp, you have to zoom way in order to do small moves. Otherwise, it sort of jumps on you from time to time. It's aggravating that way, but that's just the way it works. Now we're going to bring this down to right about here. Now, take a look. And on this plan, they were kind enough to do a nice smooth continuation line here of what the fuselage would look like if the canopy were not even there. So we can check the accuracy by looking here where the canopy comes back and clips that line. So we're pretty accurate. I'm happy about that. That's just fine. So we're going to continue on now from this and start putting in more. Here's F4, F3, and we're going to go forward. All right, I'll speed things up again, but I'm happy about this. Now we need to stop for just a moment and take a look at this. We're developing a problem here, and the problem is this. If you drop one of these drawings over the top of another one of these drawings, they melt together, and then you just have a real mess trying to straighten things out or moving it or sizing it or anything else. The way you have to get around that in SketchUp, now I can't speak for every CAD program, but the way you have to get around that in SketchUp is to create components. Each of these segments are going to be a component. Now we can do that now or later, but I thought now would be a good time to show you, because right now if this gets any fatter out here, it's going to come back in here and fall on top of this fuselage former right here, and we don't want that. The way to make a component in SketchUp is to again select everything. You can either triple click and that selects it, or you can of course come down here and do the pull it box all the way around it. Now you've selected it, and you can hit G on the keyboard, and what that does is pops up the create component drop down box for you. And it doesn't matter what you call this right now, because we're going to go back in here and we're going to change all the names to something more readable later. So just pick anything, we'll just call it 1 and create that. We're going to do that with all of these now because it's just a good thing to do to work in components. Now you can see a box is drawn around that. No matter what we do now, unless we actually click on that component, right click and hit edit, now you can see we can draw on that, we can do anything that we like to change it. But you can't do that. Let me click away now. Nothing that I draw out here now, if I took a line and just drew a line across that, it would not stick because I haven't selected the component to edit it. So I'll go back through here right quick and make these components. Okay, now these are all components, and I don't have to worry about dropping something on them and then having to worry about untangling the mess because they, as I said, melt together. Okay, let's go take again one of the last cockpit formers over here, move the endpoint, Control C, drop it here. And I'm using the tops of these, of course, because the canopy is what we're interested in. I'm using the tops of these for alignment. Now we're going to move up. This is the former right here that we're dragging over here, and as you can see, the canopy actually comes down. So I'm going to move this up a considerable amount. As a matter of fact, I'm going to move a couple of these up a considerable amount because we're going to have to sand that off for a block canopy, and we want the shoulder down here to be as close as possible to this curvature, this line, and this is going to be sanded to shape. So now again we do scale. We're going to come down here. Now this is a good example of something. If I had not created this as a component when I did that, and I came down here and dropped this, those would have connected there, and that is not what we want. We do not want this connected with that. This, however, is a component, so nothing that I do to this is going to affect that. Now they're all components. This is going to be a component here too, so triple click, assign it a random number, and there it is. Now what I'm going to do is look back here, and we're going to bring this shoulder up a bit. The actual width of these are going to be measured from down here. our top view. But for right now, I'm going to go in here and rescale some of these so that we got that shoulder up closer to the line where it's going to have to actually be. There we go. Now, this may look really out of whack, but you'll see in a while when we adjust these for the proper dimension across that things will start looking a little bit better. Okay, the last former that we need now is this one. Move another copy, and we come up here. And once again, I'm going to align with the top because the wing down there doesn't matter. Scale it, pull it down to the bottom of the wing. Here we are. And as you can see, we've overlaid this component here too, and we don't want that. So we'll call this 12, and we won't have to worry about that. Okay, now we're going to move a copy of this. On the line, pull this out, come down, and we're going to scale the bottom. And we need one more. So take this component, move, hit M for move, Control C for a copy, and we're going to come right up here. Okay, that should be the last scaling that we have to do. Now we have all of our formers scaled to height, not width yet, but to height. And once again, in order to keep this from being so confusing, now this is the model formers. We're not going to use these anymore. Now we're going to use the formers that we have scaled over here for our slices. One easy way to help contain this and make it not so confusing, I'm going to use the tape measure tool again. And another autosave. Okay, it's T for tape, and I just did that in order to get a parallel line. Here we have this parallel, this line here. We'll pull this up here. Oh, it doesn't matter. Just anywhere above the plan view so that it's out of the way. And what we're going to do now is come in here and put some very important marks on these in order to keep them aligned with each other from now on. As you can see, our datum line here intersects every former. That's very important, and that's also one of the main reasons why you select a datum line. You select it so that it will intersect each one of these so that they can be aligned to each other. Over here we've got them all, but as you can see, they're not aligned. You can't make a fuselage that way, the arc. So these are. But in order to make sure that we keep them that way, we're going to have to come in here. We're going to select the component. We're going to right click and we're going to edit. And to edit that component, we're going to then come in with the line tool down here where datum comes across, and we're just going to make a little tick mark down there. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be there so that now, let me click somewhere outside that area. Okay, now we've made that tick mark, and it is a part of this component. It will move with it. Had we not selected the component and selected edit, the tick mark would have just stayed there when we move this component. So we're going to take this now and we're going to move it, but the handle that we're going to use this time is this intersection with the datum line right there. Okay, we're not going to move a copy this time. We're going to move the whole thing. We're going to move it right up here. We don't have to pay any attention to the section lines anymore. We're just going to stick this up here anywhere on this line. The section lines are not going to mean much at this particular moment. They will in a bit when we decide to start making these things wider or narrower. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing now with all of these. When we get down here, you can see that we're starting to get a little overlap between these components right here. And just to make it less confusing and easier to draw in our marked line, our reference line, all I'm going to do is just take these and move them on the red axis. As long as you just slide it down the red axis and you're not moving it up and down, then the reference line will stay in the same place. So just move it over so you get a clear view so you can come in here and stick in the reference line. And there you are. Now we have all of them up here. They're not overlapping so that we can work on them individually. And from here, we're going to next check the width. There is one additional item on here that we've got to do right now, and I neglected to do it when it was down here on the drawing. We inserted in all of our components up here, our fuselage templates, one reference line. I forgot, we're going to need two. We're going to need one out here at the other end because this is the mark that we're going to transfer to the outside of the foam. So I'm going to come in here, and just as I put a reference mark on the center, I'm going to put one in here at each intersection. Select it, edit component, zoom in, hit L for your line tool, and make sure when you select out here that you're at the intersection, because SketchUp loves to grab one of these line segments instead. It will automatically snap to that if you're not careful about what you do. All right, now this one is properly annotated. It's got a mark at the top, and we're going to transfer these outside marks inside after we make this into a whole component. We're going to need a mark at all of the axes, top, bottom, right, and left, and we'll do that now. I'm going to speed this up. Here we go. And now we're done. We've got the marks that we're going to need, and as I said, later on we're going to put these marks on the inside, but that's after we make these formers whole and start hollowing them out. We have only a couple of things to do now for the remainder of this particular video, and one of these, now we checked the vertical sizes of all of these against the side view of the model. What we have not done is check the width of these against the top view of our model. Now we know that this former, and I'll move it down here so that just for clarity, we won't have to move all of them. So if we take this little guy right here, again, I'll pull it down on a case-by-case basis, and we'll hit Control-C to just move a copy. This was the former that was right here. Now what we need to know is we've got the height, we need to know the width. We'll come down here. Remember, we dropped a centerline reference line here early on. You can see it clearer back here where it's more obvious in a clear space, but that line is there. We once again select the T for tape tool, and we come down here on that line, and then we just move up and see how wide that needs to be. Now that says 49.2. What we're going to do is we're going to make that an even 50. So now let's go up here and see what we actually have when we drew this. Let's check it out. Tape tool again, move it this way, and is this 50? It's 52.3. That is very, very close. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to just accept 52 millimeters. 2 millimeters is close enough for government work. So we do not have to resize this one. Okay, now that's just a copy, so we can delete it. Now the one back of it, of course, was derived from that. We'll come down here, and it should be about the same. We're going to ignore the cowl portion, but it should be exactly 50 also. Again, here to the outside, and that's going to be 48 or 49. Yep, so we'll call that 50 also. So this one, and let's check for number 3 back. 1, 2, 3, and it should also be 50 because we're 2 back to there. Again, come out, check it out, 49 something, yep, and that'll do. So our first 3 are okay. Now we've got this guy. This is the first one that we dropped in down here, and I'll move him again, or a copy. I'll move a copy of this guy down here to see what we're doing. Move, Control-C. Usually I wouldn't bother to move this, but to illustrate it, we're going to do it. Come down here. And this is not these circular ones. This is the one in the canopy right here. So now let's put it right here, back where we initially had it. We'll come back here, and again we're still up in the 50 millimeter range. So we'll hit tear again, come up. Yeah, this is going to remain 50 until the next one. So let's go up and see how wide this one is. This one might not be 50. And let's check it here. Tape on that edge will come out here, and it's 48.8. It could expand a little bit. So we'll select this and scale it. Now I'm going to scale this. We need that to be about 48.8. So, I'm sorry, we need that to be about 50. So I'm going to take a line out here, a tape line at 50, and let's see where that ended up. Okay, we have to keep straight now that this is one of our foam segment lines, as is this. This is the line that we want to scale to. Select the former, hit S for scale again. Now this time we're not going to scale it around the entire plane. We're just going to make it fatter. And the easy way to do that is come out here, take this handle, and click it back until it falls on the line, and it'll stop. And there we go. Now we just kind of fatten that guy up. It also fattened this one up, because when you do something to one copy of a former, you do it to the others. But I made these all unique. So what we've got to do now is come up here and get rid of the skinny guy, and we'll come down here and replace it with the fatter one, and we'll move him. Again, we'll select the handle that's on the datum line, and we'll come up here, and it doesn't matter, we'll just put him right there. Okay, now we've got the first 4 done. Let's take the next one back, and we're going to do the exact same thing, except I'll just leave him here, and we'll just come down here and measure. This former is the one that falls on this line right here, and again, it's in the fat part of the fuselage before it's really starting much of a taper. It might be. Let's go in here and check. Okay, we're at about 46 or 47 now, so the taper has already started. Okay, we're going to come in here and get rid of this extraneous line here. We didn't need it. Okay, so 46, 47. So we'll take this former here, the one that we're moving again, just to keep it. And we're the second one back in the canopy fold. Canopy formers. And this one we'll probably have to make a little bit thinner. So again, what I want to do to prevent confusion here is I'm going to erase this particular segment line. I'll put it back in a moment, but right now we said, let's check again. We're going to call it about 47. So 47, type it in, it falls right there. Now let's see which way we've got to scale this. Okay, this one is too fat. So we'll select it, hit S for scale, move it over to the 47 millimeter line, and we've got it. Now I'm going to erase the 47 millimeter line because that's just confusing, and I'm going to put back in the 48. There we go. All right, now we've gotten the second one done. So this one we'll do away with. We'll come down here, auto saving again. Come down here, select M for move, grab it on our reference line, and pull it back up here. Okay. Now this is the next to the last canopy selection here, and instead of moving a copy, I'll just move this because it's just getting to be repetitious. Now this is our second canopy former. Here's our first, here's our second. So this one goes right here, of course, and there we are. Now let's see how wide it is down here below. And this one is about 45.2. We'll make it 46. We always want to make these a tad fatter because it's easier to sand off than it is to add on. So we'll make this one 46. We'll come up here, Once again, we'll take the tape tool, go out 46 and drop a line. We'll select this, hit scale, and drag it out until it drops on that line. Now I'll get rid of that reference. There we go. As you can see, these were a little bit out of shape. So now we're fixing that so that we don't have to worry about horizontal size as well as vertical. Okay, now I'll move this back up. There we go. Now I'm going to do this all the way back with each and every one of these, and I'll do them individually and speed things up. That would have been faster and less time consuming had I done it when we did the original scaling. So I apologize for the delay, but I show this stuff warts and all, so there was a wart. But now we've got these all sized correctly. We have one additional thing to do now before we bring this episode to an end, and that is we're going to make these whole. They're on the half shell right now, but we're going to make them whole. We don't need these original sketches any longer, so actually we do. I'm going to need them over here when I do the other one. That I will do offline so that you don't have to watch through all this again. But we're going to take all of these and we're going to move a copy. Move, Control C. And we'll just come in here and grab one of the endpoints that is on our reference line. All right, and we'll put this right about here. And now what we'll do is, since we have all of these selected, we can do all this at one time. I'll right click, come down here to flip along, and we'll flip along the red axis again, and bingo, now we have got the reverse of these. We can start putting these together now one by one, and here we go. I'll take this one and we'll move it. And we're going to put that there. Okay, now we no longer need this to be a component because we're going to have to do some drawing operations on this. And we don't want two components here. We want one sketch. So what I'll do now is select that and explode. Select this and explode. And now we no longer have any components here. What we have is just a sketch. Now I'll have to be careful not to drop anything on that because it'll melt to it. But we're going to come in here and do some other stuff, and we just need to draw on that. And it's a lot easier to draw on if it's just a sketch. Okay, so now let's take our next component and we'll move it over here to the side of this guy. Then we'll go get the next, and I'll do this for each and every one. We'll do a move, come over here, we'll do a join, and then on each one I will explode it so that they're now back to individual sketches instead of components. Okay, now I'll speed this up. And okay, we're down to the very last one. Good old tail end Charlie here. We'll join him up, select all, move, and now we'll move the last one down here into the former train. Now we've got them all whole, and I'm going to explode this now. Now they're back to drawings instead of components, so that we can manipulate them a bit easier now that they are exploded. We'll just have to be careful that we don't drop anything, or drop one on top of the other, because as I said, they'll melt into each other. This session has gone on way longer than I had intended, but it's finally drawing to a close. There's one more thing that I'm going to do now. When you look at these individual drawings now, you'll see that they're divided by this vertical here where we joined them. And we're going to do some operations on these later where we don't want that. We want this to be one solid. So the way to do that is to hit E for the eraser tool and just take that out. Now, we're going to need the line on the inside. As I said earlier, we're going to convert this one to a line on the inside now. Come back here and do this. We're going to come down here to the bottom and we're going to do the same thing, because when we print these out, there we are. When we print these out, and we can even go back in here and add the center line. It's not really required, but there we are. When we print these out, we want these tick marks at all four axes, so we can transfer these to the foam blocks and align the foam blocks. Now I'm going to do this very same thing with all of these, and then this will be done for this session. I'll go offline and do the same thing for the XPS foam, but that should do it for this time. again, we're going to go in here. We're going to get rid of the center dividing line by erasing it. That way, when you select this, you've just got one plane. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to add the tick marks to the top and the bottom. And to the center. Okay, whoops, don't want to do that. To the center. And again, going to do it to all of them. All right. So let's bring this long session to an end, and I'll go ahead and do this offline, and they'll all be done when we come back for the next episode. Thank you for hanging in there. Well, guys, this ends episode number 5. It went on much longer than I expected, but again, I'm doing this step by step, each and every aspect of designing one of these things and developing the parts and templates are going to be illustrated. So again, sorry for the pace, but all the information should be there for you, okay? The next episode we'll continue on making the templates for the fuselage cutouts, and we'll end up with some usable templates that we're going to print out on poster board and use to cut the foam. Thanks for hanging in there.